Right, it has been another scorcher of a day here in Northumberland. What are we talking about today in the technical? It is when should you take your stock bulls out, and by out I mean away from the cows and heifers. At the moment, if you're spring calving, in the northern hemisphere at least, your stock bulls are probably out, have just come in or about to go out. If you think this is going to be useful, by all means hit subscribe. There's more to come for sure. I do try and put a Tuesday technical out every week, the emphasis on the word try. Anyway, back to the topic in hand. Now, it's not uncommon, certainly amongst our client base, to come across people with very extended bulling periods. And that could be, say for example, over several months. What does that mean in practice? It means the cows end up calving over a very extended period as well. Often when we as vets suggest that the bulls should come away earlier and give them a more compact bulling and therefore a more compact calving period, we come up against a bit of resistance. And I think it's important to understand that farmers, you guys, there's a real reason for that resistance. It's because it entails a reasonable amount of work to pull those bulls out. One, in that you've actually got to go and haul them away, and he might not be very cooperative. And two, you've actually got to find somewhere to put him or them if you've got more than one bull. Now, I'm going to try in this video to cover a few points and just show you the benefits of having a compact bulling and a compact calving period. It's worth putting that work in during the summer to make your spring calving easier and more effective. So, number one, if you select your own replacements, for sure, you're going to be selecting for longer term fertility in your herd. And by that I mean you're not keeping back the calves from cows that get in calf late in the season and that probably have some issue with fertility. So longer term fertility is going to be better. Two, you make more efficient use of medicines. Again, compact bulling means compact calving. It's not uncommon for our farmers to give, say, a pre-calving scour vaccine or a pre-calving clostridial vaccine. Now, these vaccines really are designed to work not long before calving actually happens. And say you give them all on the same calendar date. Some cows calve when they should, nice and early in the first 3 cycles. Those calves are going to be protected well by those pre-calving vaccines you've given. However, any that slip back later and later, the effectiveness of that protection to those calves is going to wane. Third, in much the same vein, it makes better use of trace element boluses if you're using them, because again, these things typically last around 6 months, but of course you should go and investigate that with your vet. If cows are given a pre-calving bolus, then if they calve within the first few weeks, it's going to cover them nicely for the calving period as well as the bulling period. However, if they calve very late, the effectiveness of that trace element bolus may start to wane by the time they get to bulling, which is going to affect fertility next year. Again, if we have a compact bulling period, the cows in the run up to calving are going to be much more uniform at the stage of pregnancy at which they're at. That facilitates better nutrition, so you're not wasting putting good feed into cows who are far off calving. That really is an expensive way to make cows over fat and therefore increase calving difficulty. Next, you're likely to receive reduced rates of calf disease, and that could be all sorts: navel ill, joint ill, meningitis, common causes of calf illness and death. And the reason for that is partly because of the more effective use of medicines in the cows, as we discussed, but also because, and this is especially true of an indoor environment, is that calves that are born earlier, especially in a shed, are generally born into a cleaner environment. And that's because inevitably, however religious we are about hygiene in the calving shed, over time, over those weeks of calving, bugs tend to accumulate, and calves that are born later see a much greater challenge in terms of the bugs they encounter, and so they're more vulnerable then to succumbing to disease. You're also likely to see fewer assisted calvings. Again, that boils back to the nutrition. You're not overfeeding cows in mid-gestation, so they're not getting over fat and making really big calves. Of course, it boils back to the fact that cows who are put onto a generous ration, even if that's spring grass, too early in pregnancy tend to put down excessive condition and make rather large calves. It's amazing how many C-sections we do in June and July, even though most of our herds calve in March, April, May. Those late calvers are really overrepresented when it comes to calving difficulties. And of course that's bad for the calf, it's bad for you, and it's going to impair the fertility of the cow next year. Again, plays into next year's fertility. Generally the calf batches are going to be bigger because they're older, more are born in the earlier stages of the calving period, and they're going to be more uniform. Again, that helps when it comes to marketing calves, and also when you're giving medicines. Generally it's much easier when you're working with a more uniform batch. You've got less difference in age and also in size. It also lowers the risk of chance calvers, and by chance calvers I mean heifer calves that get pregnant when they shouldn't, really teenage pregnancies. You've got to think, if you leave the stock bull in for a really long time, it may be that the heifer calves that are currently on the cows that you don't want served may come bulling, and he may serve them. It's not uncommon for us to see every year a handful of heifer calves that are calving down at 14, 15, 16 months old. That means they are being bulled at 5, 6 or 7 months old. It's not impossible. And of course those heifers very rarely calve unassisted. It puts a big drain on them. Often it's a dead calf. It really is worth avoiding. Finally, I'm going to come to time, and that's your own, but also of any staff that you might hire, either permanent or temporary, for the calving period. So again, everyone's always got other things they can be doing rather than looking at calving cows. It does take up a real chunk of your time, almost irrespective of how many are left to calve. So in terms of letting you either get on with more productive work or simply going out and enjoying yourself, keeping a compact bulling and therefore calving period really does help. Now hopefully I've convinced you that a compact calving and bulling is worth doing. Now, how do you actually get there, especially if you're on a very extended bulling period at the moment? Well, again, rather than ask me, I would generally go to your vet, and you guys can discuss what the best strategy is. And really, it's not one size fits all. Some people go the whole hog and go down really compact to the target, which is 9 weeks for cows and 6 weeks for heifers. Why are heifers shorter? Generally people want them to calve and get them done and out of the way. The other reason is, again, it comes down to selection. You want to select your most fertile heifers. If heifers aren't getting pregnant within the first couple of cycles, are those the cows you want to keep as replacements. Some people will go the whole hog in year 1 if they've made the decision that they're going to go for a compact calving period. Other people will go piecemeal, so they'll chop off a week or 2 every year until they get down to that target. Whether that's 9 weeks or whether that's some other target you consider sensible. Some of our guys only bull their cows and heifers for 6 weeks. It's all up to you, it's about your herd, and again I would really recommend going and talking to your vet about it, and they can advise on some of the specifics. Anyway, if you enjoyed that, please hit subscribe, press like, leave a comment. I'm having fun doing these videos. I hope you guys are finding them halfway useful. Over and out.